Hare Krishna. It's rainy. Wow. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I'm ecstatic to be here, even if it is just for a few minutes. And I've been watching in on you, doing the yeoman's work, expanding the Krishna consciousness movement. Thank you very much. And tonight we're gonna look at the Shastras, especially the Bhagavad Gita, and become very anchored to the transcendental knowledge which is coming down from the spiritual world, so that we can continue on the path of bhakti. We'll start with chanting the Maha Mantra. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Bracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pretty good. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Four. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One. Back to one. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Hare Krishna. We're very fortunate to be here in this sublime atmosphere. It's the kind of environment that engenders purification or brings love for God. Purification naturally leads to a realization of the finer sentiments that are our nature. So, Srila Prabhupada writes in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita that, this is a beautiful garland, by the way. It's a real work of art. That one must transfer one's attention from material literature to spiritual literature. And I was listening the other day to Mula Prakriti Dasi. She's was one of the great book distributors back in the 1970s. She passed away, and some years ago, before she did, she left extensive memories of her talks with Srila Prabhupada, which were quite a few. Prabhupada spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, and that's where she was based. And she was a book distributor, and Prabhupada used to encourage her and the other lady book distributors there. And he would ask her what people were saying and what she was saying to others. Prabhupada took an active interest in that because he was the original book distributor. And she would tell him that, you look like a spiritual person, and tell them a little bit about the books. And Prabhupada said, I have something you can tell them. And he gave her the verse from the Bhagavatam, Krishne swadhamo pagate dharmaganadi bisaha kalonashchandrishamesha puranarko donodita. He said, you tell them this verse, that this Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun and has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali should get light from this Purana. He also, in the course of talking to her, told her that we want to popularize transcendental literature. Popularize transcendental literature. He said that's for the good of human society. Because humans are apt to take in knowledge of all kinds. It depends on their identification. everyone, according to their identification, gets motivated in a certain way because the soul is naturally motivated. Krishna says, Nahi kashchit shanamapi jatu tishchatya karma krit karyate hyavasha karma sarva prakriti jargunai. Soul has some impetus. If you look anywhere, any living being is moving and creating, because that's the nature of the soul. However, according to our identification, we move and give our energy in certain directions. And if I identify with body, then I give all my energy to the body. And it makes a lot of sense if I think I'm my body to try to make a permanent settlement here in the material world, and to also take care of the body in the best possible way. If that's actually who I am, doesn't that make logical sense? And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that it's especially important to orient oneself properly, because you're not the body. You're actually a soul within the body. And if you misidentify, then your motivation and energy will go towards taking care of something that you're not. So we'll talk about that tonight. But first, I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who started it all back in 1965 in New York City. And to all of you, because you are Vaishnavas and therefore the most worshipable in the three worlds. Hare Krishna. And if somebody could bring me a Bhagavad Gita, I'll be eternally grateful to you. It feels a little barren here without a book, even though I'm going to read from the screen. I was thinking about Prabhupada when we were traveling recently, because when you're home, you get what you want, and when you travel, you get what you get. Of course, when you're with devotees, it's always very compatible and beautiful, but I was thinking about Prabhupada. Prabhupada was satisfied living in Vrindavan in a simple environment, Rupa Goswami's temple. And when he came to America, he stayed in all kinds of different places with the prime motivation of establishing Krishna consciousness on the order of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his guru. But it requires some austerity, that is, living in places that you're not used to, where you don't have privacy and so forth. And Prabhupada stayed in people's homes. And when you stay in somebody's home, you have to be aware of the different environment, and also, if they're not acquainted with Krishna consciousness, also becomes an austerity. And of course, Prabhupada moved in New York. He was at first in the home of the Agarwals, and then he stayed in Dr. Mishra's ashram. He had a place in New York City where his typewriter and other personal effects were stolen. That's quite an austerity. I can tell you one thing: devotees are not meant for the East Coast during the winter. I made a joke recently. We were in Colorado, it was freezing, and then we were in Washington, D.C., it was freezing. We were in Delaware, it was freezing. We were in New York, Philly, it was freezing. And whenever I go out, it says perfect devotee weather. Perfect for Calcutta in the summertime. And Prabhupada, he didn't shop at REI or Patagonia before he came to the West in the freezing cold, the coldest winter on record in New York City. He had his pointy shoes, which the devotees still have actually in New York. We just brought him out the other day for that fundraiser. Hansarupa kindly put him on my head. I really needed that. Helped out a lot. Prabhupada he just came and depended on Krishna. He said later to the general mass of devotees, after he'd already established Krishna consciousness to a certain degree, that anyone who would go and preach Krishna consciousness without any concerns for their personal comfort, he said that he would personally bless them. And some of the devotees just did that and went to all kinds of places. I know when Malati and Shyamasundar first went to the UK, they didn't have any money. They stayed in someone's garage, and of course they had a little baby, Saraswati, and she told me at first they lived in a big refrigerator box. You know those big boxes the refrigerator comes in? So that they made it into a little house in the garage, and that's what they stayed in. They're perfectly happy because they were on a mission. Narayana paraksarve nakutaschara bibyati swarga pavarga narakeshu api tulyarta darshana. Tulyarta. It's equal to the person who's on a mission for Krishna, whether he or she stays in a refrigerator box or at a fancy place. Actually, sometimes fancy places are more austere because the vibration is objectionable. But when one's engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness, one's in direct contact with Krishna and feels his presence everywhere. So the austerity, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, that I take in the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and of my Guru, the problems that I encounter, these become my source of happiness in life. Because one way or another, we're going to have problems, and there are going to be austerities. But if we're engaged in the mission, and we take austerities, then it becomes a sacred duty, and it makes the heart happy. So, sacrifice for the sake of the Supreme is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, is what puts one into the flow of abundance. Jagnartat kamano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana tarartam karma konteya mukta sangha samachara. Yeah, he recommends that. Sahajagna praja shrishva purovacha prajapati arina prashavishadvam. Last line. Shrishtakama duk. It's the way to, he says, to live for human beings. This is the formula to live in abundance and happiness, is to perform sacrifice. And so the best of sacrifice is to preach Krishna consciousness. Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita that there's no person that pleases me more. Sacrifice means to please Krishna, to do something to please Krishna rather than myself. I try to please myself, it just doesn't work out properly. In fact, there's an old saying, if you want to make God laugh, then tell him your plans. But if I find out what his plan is and I align myself with it, then it's an empowering kind of situation. Do you agree? I thought so. You all look so transcendental. You're following this system. So let's look at the Bhagavad Gita at the 4th chapter, 22nd verse. Yadrishya labasantushto dvanvatito vimatsara samaksiddhavasidhau cha kritvapina nibhadyate. So let's look at the word for word. This is a word that comes up a lot throughout the teachings of the Bhagavatam. Yadrishya, everyone say. Out of its own accord. Did you ever have anything come of its own accord? Like what? What? What's that? Toothache. Toothaches come of their own accord. When you're least expecting them, you're just getting ready to go. Once we were traveling on a 4th of July weekend, I believe it was, in St. Louis to Colorado, and we had to stop and pick up somebody in Kansas City, Kansas. There's a Kansas City, Kansas, and a Kansas City, Missouri. I believe we were in Kansas City, Kansas. They don't take the Doty people very kindly there. But our car, we had a caravan and our car stalled outside of Kansas City. And our leader told the other cars, go ahead, we'll fix it. And we didn't fix it, so we had to walk back to the person's house who had already gone ahead of us and break in and stay there for the night. But on the way there, anyway, the point was we weren't expecting it. The car just broke down. It came of its own accord. and things went sideways. Sometimes, did you ever get money of its own accord? It just came? No. Well, wait around long enough. I mean, didn't you ever find $5 in your jacket or something like that? Or on the road. That happened to me one night. I was getting ready for some project and I had to go make copies. I think it was before home copy machines. And it was late at night. Nirkula said, "Why are you going out so late?" And I said, "I got to go to the 24-hour copy place and get these copies made." And I went out there. She said, "That's too late." So I drove out there and I looked on the road. I couldn't believe it. I pulled over and there was cash all over the road. No wallet, just cash. I pulled over, I picked it up and said, "You were wrong. It was a good time to go out." Yadrisha just came of its own accord. Huge stacks of cash. Things do come of their own accord. It seems mysterious, but there is a method behind it. In the Bhagavatam, Narada Muni says, "Tasyaiva hetu prayateta kovido nalabhyate yad brahmatam upariyada." He said things do come of their own accord in due course of time because there's a momentum from my previous activities. I may not remember them, but they're there and they're coming. And he said, just as bad things come of their own accord without asking for them, good will also come according to what's already in the pipeline. It's already lined up in the silo. If you use the FIFO method, first in, first out, or the FILO, first in, last out, that the things come in the order that they're lined up karmically, they're going to come of their own accord. So this is an important concept to remember, that things will come of their own accord. You don't have to try so hard, and that's one of the themes that's in this verse and purport, at least on the material side, and that's the point of Narada's teaching, tasyaiva hetu prayateta kovido nalabhyate yad brahmatam uparida talabhyate dukkhavaranyata sukham kalena sarvatra gabhira ramhasa. In due course of time, kalena, these things will come. So he said, don't try so hard on the material side, but do try for spiritual advancement, because that's where you can make all the difference. So labha means gain. Everyone say labha. So with gain, santushta, satisfied. So the first line says, this is Krishna's recommendation. It's a practice. As you know, in the 17th chapter of the Gita, Krishna says that satisfaction is the austerity of the mind. You have to practice satisfaction. So what does it mean? Yadrishcha labasantushto. Practice being satisfied with those things that come of their own accord. And then the next line says, well, before we go on, that's a concept unto itself, because we're going to go into a couple more recommendations in this verse. But the first one is yadrishcha labha santushto. So practice this austerity of accepting yadrishcha, things that come of their own accord, being satisfied with those things and not trying so hard. So before we go on to the next point, let's just see if you have any questions about that to expand the scope of yadrishcha labha santushto. And it might start with something like, yeah, but what if, or, and that's easy for somebody else to say, but if you have an observation, you may offer it. Yes.
So if we say that everything comes on its own accord, Prabhu, then what about this whole industry of motivational speakers? They say that it doesn't matter, you can get success, like you can get what you want.
They're more attuned to karma kandya, which is, karma kanda says that, really, if you do your work properly, that is according to the Vedas, you do the right mantras and do the right sacrifices, then material nature, it's automatic. automatically supplies you and aligns you up. That's why, actually, they don't believe in liberation, the Karmakandiyas. They believe that you should stay in the process of performing these Vedic sacrifices all the time, so you stay ahead of the curve and stay on the top of the pile here in the material world. And it's very similar, the motivational speakers. It's one-dimensional. They don't consider the 5 factors of action, headed by the Supersoul. Supersoul is there overseeing and permitting. And there are 4 other factors that are involved. So it's not that simple. Otherwise, of course, their admonition is, meaning the motivational speakers or even prosperity preachers nowadays, you're just not trying hard enough. But lots of people try really hard and don't get ahead. And it's not just because they didn't, meditate long enough on their material desires. It's because there are other obstacles. For instance, that you may not be qualified by material nature to receive certain things at a particular time. There are other factors involved.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that if we really look at this, if we internalize that everything come of its own accord, I feel that we totally waste our time lamenting for those things that we lose or things that we want, like we hanker so much.
Yeah.
But the whole 90% of the time goes in that we don't internalize this information that's being said here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Can we at the same time accept...
Can you turn up the red mic, please?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Can we accept whatever is coming and at the same time consider it as a sign from Krishna to align my way? So if I should go here, or if something doesn't go right, should I just find another way? At the same time, I accept, but...
Well, there's 2 parts there. Can you accept what comes? And the rule given in the Bhagavatam is kamasya nindriya pritir labo jiveti yavata jivasya tattva jignasya narto yashcheha karma bhi. And in the Sri Upanishad is ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita magradha kasisvadanam. So the first verse from the Bhagavatam says that life's desires shouldn't be aimed at sense gratification, but you should use whatever facility you have to live a healthy, balanced life, but only so that you can inquire and endeavor spiritually. So this is in harmony with the Sri Upanishad, Tena Tyaktena Bunjita, that is, those things that are set aside by the Lord as one's quota, that you can use those things, bunjita, for your maintenance in order to, anyway, that's what that verse says. So you have to be level-headed and understand, that how to use things in the service of Krishna and not become, as Prabhupada writes elsewhere in the Sri Upanishad, don't become overheated. He speaks about how the civilization becomes overheated, and it's like the temperature in the body. If it gets overheated, there's a fever, and it's a disease condition. So the fever is in the material world for sense gratification. No matter what I get, you got to have more. I mean, come to the point, I don't know how you're going to make the iPhone any better. It keeps saying, well, the camera gets better, but like how much better? I mean, what do you need? I mean, so... there's a saturation point when you start getting to into material nature, and you don't need more and more and more, but you can get inflamed, and that becomes the main objective. So that was the first part of your question. The second part was what?
Can we see also at the same time what happens, the sign from Krishna that he's trying to align my way, my actions,
Yeah.
turn me to another way?
Well, you could take Sudama Brahmana. You know, when he went to see Krishna, he was very poor. And he didn't even want to go see Krishna, but his wife said, you know, go see Krishna. He's your old friend. And besides that, he's the husband of the goddess of fortune. So, you know, something might happen. And Sudama was satisfied. He thought, you know, I'm happy living the way I am. I have what I need. Prabhupada talks about brahmanas and in the culture he grew up in. They didn't work for anybody, and they would accept whatever charity people gave them. And if they didn't get much, they didn't need much. And he tells about one teacher, Brahman, and he knew that he most of the time he just have some water with tamarind leaves in it, and you know, some broth like that, something simple, a couple curry leaves, a little pile of rice. But he was satisfied, and so was Sudama. And when he went to see Krishna, he had a heartfelt exchange with Krishna. Krishna was so happy to see him, his old friend from school. They had memories. They had gone out to serve their guru by collecting wood in the forest, and they got caught in a severe storm and had to take shelter out in the woods. And Sandipani Muni, their guru, came looking for them. And he was so grateful that they had made that sacrifice for him. Krishna and he were reminiscing. And he had brought a little gift, had Sudama, that his wife had collected from the neighbors. It was a little chipped rice. And he was embarrassed to even give it to Krishna. Krishna reminded him, you have some little gift, right? And then he actually snatched it from him, and he started taking he took a portion, 2 portions. He was about to take a third. And Rukmini, the goddess of fortune, was there, and she said, no, don't take third. I'll be so obligated if you take even one more. I won't be able to repay him. As is Krishna's kindness, because even the smallest offering out of love, Krishna takes as the most important. So when Sudama was going back, he was to his what was a ramshackle home and a poor neighborhood. He was just relishing thinking of his friend. And he thought to himself, oh, Krishna's so kind, you know, he didn't give me anything. Because he said, I would have become puffed up. And that he took that as a sign. But when he got back, he saw that not his house, but his wife and the whole place had been transformed into an atmosphere that was more opulent than Indra's abode, the kingdom of heaven. And then he used it in Krishna's service. He didn't become attached to it. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes in that section that Sudama was attached to being poor, so Krishna gave him wealth. Other people, it's the opposite. So, yasyaham anagrinnami harishe taddanam shanai. The Mahabharata, it says that when Krishna wants to send you a message that he really appreciates you, then he takes away everything so that you become fully dependent on him. Of course, for somebody like Sudama who can handle it, he gives him wealth. And you should always be looking at it as a sign from Krishna, whether he takes it away or gives you more. Because devotees, they're always thinking how to use everything in Krishna's service.
Thank you.
Oh, Shraddha, sorry. One, and then we'll go back.
So 2 things. One is from the Facebook, a reflection by Bhaktin Kamala Vasant. So she's saying don't try for the material side, but try for the spiritual growth and also practice satisfaction.
Yeah, trying from the material side as much as is necessary. That's the direction given in the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. It does, when Krishna says perform sacrifice, or he says anad bhavati bhutani, that we live by food grains. Of course, there is a stage of consciousness and acting that is described in the Bhagavatam from the Python man, who literally didn't do anything. He just laid there. And when Narada Muni met him, he said, was it Narada or Prahlad met him? He said, so how did you get so fat? You don't even try. He said, sometimes I'm fat, sometimes I'm skinny. Sometimes things come, sometimes things don't. I don't try for them at all. But in general, Krishna talks about a minimal amount of struggle in order to maintain oneself. Prabhupada advocated for that also, that if you live a standard of life that is closer to the natural order, just growing some things and living on the land and so forth, you work. You have to work, but not so hard. He Prabhupada would contrast that with this kind of factory life where people in India, of course, they moved away from a lot of the farms and then they started getting into factories and moving into the cities and getting an artificial kind of lifestyle. And that can be really tough. I mean, you pay thousands of dollars for a wardrobe so you can go to work, and then you got to buy a car so you can go to work, and then you got to work so you can pay for it all. And then it gets really stressful, and it's these kind of, artificial type of things may become difficult. But he doesn't say don't work, but just don't work unnecessarily. Try to live a more balanced life so you can save time for spiritual practice. And the other part?
Maharaj, that was a question I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
Is that we always talk about the material world and we say that we won't get satisfied. For example, if you take a gulab jamun, then next day again you want to have it. The satisfaction is not there because we are originally spiritual beings, so material things will not satisfy us. But when we start doing devotional service, then also that hankering is there too. Like the names of the Lord, chanting the names of the Lord. So a person says, I want to have millions of ears and millions of tongues. So how to understand that part?
Well, of course, if it's a Maha Gulab Jamun offered to Krishna, it's a little different. It's just that material ambition and material desire is not the same as, spiritual ambition and desire isn't the same as material ambition and desire. Difference is one is enervating, it takes away our energy, and it also, there's a satiation point. But those who hanker for service are always, they're feeling happiness, and at the same time there's no satiation point. They can do more and more service. They can go on chanting. Prabhupada used to point out that, when you have a taste for chanting, it never becomes hackneyed. You can continue to chant without cessation. And if you develop a taste for that, that's something where, although the desire is there, the taste is there, the hunger is there for it. There's something that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out, or maybe it's Jiva Goswami in the verse Bhakti Parishanubhava Virakti Ranyata Traishatrika Eka Kala. This is a verse that points out that it's an analogy. It says spiritual life is like a hungry person who's feeding him or herself and feels nourishment, satisfaction, and hunger goes away. So this is compared to bhakti. When you're surrendering to Krishna, then naturally you start to develop a feeling of devotion for the Lord. And you also begin to see Him for yourself, and you also, you become detached from all things that are material. So in the analogy of being satisfied, like when you're eating, you get satisfied, you don't want to eat anymore. So he said there's a flaw in this analogy, because the more you eat or you take devotional service, although the hunger increases, it's not satiated. You can go on taking more, which is kind of nice. I mean, the Romans used to try to do that, I heard. When they were eating, they'd go to the vomitorium and throw it up and try to start over again. Sorry. I figured Prashadam's a long way away, so just erase that image. So the spiritual hankering is satisfying, but whereas material hankering is different. It's like iron and gold. This is what Kaviraj Goswami says, that material desire, although it's a desire, and spiritual desire is a desire, it's like, okay, they're both metals, but one is iron and the other one's gold. So that's the difference. Yes, 1, 2.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You had started, this lecture had started out with the comment about switch to spiritual literature instead of material literature.
Yes?
So the question is, if there's things that are coming up in our life, and for example, if we're trying to understand like the 4 regulative principles by encompassing like mundane literature, for example, I'm reading a book called The Biology of Desire, and it's looking at addictions. And if we're doing that, if we're reading something for the purpose of incorporating it into purifying, does it work that way, or is it just...
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're reading it for the purpose of edifying yourself and getting a clear idea about how it all works, then that could be helpful. I must say, though, if you read the Bhagavatam a lot, you start to see that Bhagavatam has a lot more things, even on the commonsensical level, than one could imagine. But yeah, there are various, phenomena that you can observe, and when you connect it to your spiritual practice and see how it's related and how it supports the principles that you're practicing, that can be helpful as well.
Dandavat, welcome back. I was wondering about, Sudama is detached from material life, but Rukmini, you said Rukmini Devi, Srimati Rukmini Devi, she sees this obligation to pay back because she's Krishna's servant, right? And so for those of us, not maybe those of us, me, people who are really deeply entangled in the material world, and like we're still like doing we don't really have, I don't really have like the adhikar to say that I'm renouncing things now. Is it reasonable to say, well, if I see that there's a devotee over here who maybe has some needs that are not taken care of yet, I'm not going to just sit around and wait for Krishna to take care of them if I have the opportunity to do that, right? Like I should try and do that kind of myself if I have the ability, right?
You want to help the devotee, you said?
Yeah, so say I see that a devotee is like Sudama, like say, someone was Sudama's neighbor. Yeah. Like Sudama's neighbors, like they did their best to help, they were probably poor too. But that's what they should do, correct? They shouldn't just be like, oh, we're poor, you're poor. Krishna will either help you or he won't. Like, isn't that part of our obligation to, like, how we can serve Krishna in the meantime while we're still disentangling ourselves?
Well, you can always do that. There's no harm in serving the devotees. In fact, it's one of the best ways to please Krishna is to take care of his devotees. And, of course, the culture of giving is there in the Upadeshamrita. Dadati pratigunati kuyamakyati prachiti bhukte bojayate chaiva shadvidam pratilakshanam. Feeding the devotees, bringing them prasadam. Once we went down to Hyderabad. Did this die sometime? It went down, I think. Anyway, we went to Hyderabad and we're taking the train back, all of us on the yatra, back in 1975, I think. And Puri Maharaj, Vaibhav Puri Maharaj had prepared puris for everybody on the train. Hundreds of them, big baskets. And he had them loaded on the train for all the devotees. So we were kind of hungry, moving around India. And we were all appreciating that we got puris from Puri Maharaj. That's what advanced devotees do, is they look out for other devotees. This is very recommended. In fact, in communities in ISKCON where devotees have this culture where they're looking out to help other devotees, devotees notice that they're being supported and they become more enthusiastic. I know in Denver, Colorado, there's a team of devotees that are just working full time. Well, not literally full time, but that's their focused service, is to see how to help devotees. There are some devotees that community became elderly and then couldn't even go out of their house. And so these devotees, one of them found out how to get funding from the local government for people who are in that condition, and also would regularly go there and make sure that they were taken care of and getting what they needed and so forth. And this is a great service to perform for others and to help them in times of need.
Can I just say Jai Denver? That's my home.
Jai Denver. Yeah, several communities are like that. The caring for devotees is a very important service, and it holds together the community quite well. Niranjana Swami has written a book about devotee care, and he has worked a lot in areas where he oversees communities to institute it. And when he was in Japan recently, he gave a talk. The devotees wanted him to talk about devotee care and how to form a system for devotee care. And he said, well, there's many systems. He said, but the main thing is you actually have to care. He said, if you have many systems, but you really don't care, then they won't work very well. They're just on paper. So we should care about devotees. We should care about everyone, care about all living entities. Krishna says in the 11th chapter of the Gita that one who's a kind friend to all living entities is very dear to me. And that Vaishnavas are like that. Prabhupada used to see, there was a bug in his room. He asked his servant to take it out, put it on a leaf so he could have something to eat. Devotees have compassion, so they're thinking about how to do good for others. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praised Murari Gupta because he said that you're a doctor. You take care of people's physical ailments, but you also cure them spiritually as well. So that's nice. Prabhupada, when he was getting ready to leave the world, he was emaciated, he wasn't eating. And when some of his disciples would come to see him from far away, they'd come in and offer their base to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada would ask them, did you get prasad? Did you get something to eat? Prabhupada couldn't eat, but he cared more. Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swadana Triptan Haribhakta Sangan Kritvaiva Triptim Bhajatak Sadaiva Vande Guroshi Charanaravinam. That's a Vaishnav's always compassionate, caring how other people are doing. Here she's not so concerned with his or her own state at the time. It was more concerned, are the devotees getting prasad? Are they being taken care of? Are they happy? So that's the preoccupation of the Vaishnavas, to make sure that other devotees are taken care of. Is that all right? Okay. Yes. You can keep it back there because we'll have one back there up here.
So Maharaj, this is from the time when you had asked about that, do you have any things come of their own accord? And so there's a very interesting answer here.
Any things that come of their own accord. And there's an interesting answer, okay.
Like Shamlangi had the toothache. Right? So I'll tell the person later. One day when I checked my mails, I found I got a check from Google long after I left the company. It was for some class action lawsuit that benefited employees that worked during a certain time. Completely came on its own accord.
Came on its own accord. You weren't expecting it. Yeah.
This is Govind Charan Prabhu.
Well, he definitely deserved it. Okay, so So yadrisha labha santushto. So this is something that one could practice, one could meditate upon. From a philosophical point of view, we could observe that things are coming anyway that I don't like of their own accord. And why try so hard then for things that I need? I do my level best, but don't overextend and become overheated. Be satisfied. And then the next line says, dvandva tito. Please say. Vimatsara. So dvandva means duality. It means seeing friends and enemies, good and bad and so forth. And atitaha means to surpass. And vimatsara means free from envy. So the next direction that Krishna gives, he says that one should dvandvatito, one should rise above duality. There's so many dualities in this world. 1 minute I'm hot, next minute I'm cold. And he said, just rise above those. They're just changes. Where else in the Gita does he say this? Matra sparshas tu kaunteya shitoshna sukadukada agama painu nityas tamstatikshashra. He had learned to tolerate these dualities. They're going to come and go. So that's a practice. And you'll have plenty of opportunity. There'll be dualities. There's no way to get everything perfectly situated here in the world without it slipping off, going the other way. You can try, but the material nature is not so accommodating. So the admonition is then try to rise above it. So you can practice that. And the next, vimatsara, means be without envy. So envy means the inability to tolerate the excellence in another. When we see somebody else is excellent, then we become envious that the person is better than me. And then next thing is samak, please say. Samak. Steady. Siddhau, in success. Asiddhau, failure. So samak siddhava siddhau cha, which means that just be the same whether you have success or you have failure in your life. Possible? Oh, no? Okay, tell her, give her the mic why no, and then Ananta looks passionate about this one, so we'll give it to him next.
Because when I get success, I become very elated because of the glorification and the attraction that I get, the attention that we get because of our success. But when failure comes, we get demotivated because of we miss all those, whatever we put our attachment to, we miss that. So it becomes difficult because of our attachment. That's how I feel.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying when you have success, then some people appreciate you and you get praise, and that makes you elated. And then on the opposite side, if you fail, then you feel like your position has been degraded and so forth, and you feel low self-esteem or something like that. She's representing a normal conditioned soul for the sake of our argument. So one thing we can notice, at least I've noticed this, is that things are never as good as they seem or as bad as they seem. I heard this mantra a long time ago and kind of kept it around with me, and I found it to be very true. Oftentimes, whatever looks like success, there's always some strings attached in the material world. Look at King Nriga. Nriga was, as far as material success goes, he had it down to a science. Karma Kanda, as I said earlier, they figure out how to work the system. And there's a system in the material world, and if you give in charity, if you do sacrifice and so forth, then you get pious credits. So he had a habit of giving away so much charity that it's inestimable. He gave away billions and billions of cows with golden plated horns and jewels on them, and the quality of the cows was unsurpassed, and he'd give them to the most qualified Brahmins. Then he made a mistake, and he ended up as a lizard. And the point of that story was that even in material endeavors, in material success, there's always some downside. Things are never as good as they seem, or as bad as they seem. Oftentimes, success or failure comes, and I think, oh, it's the end, but then there's a silver lining behind it. And the opposite is true too. Along with some success, then some burden comes. Material success means I got some success. Look at people who achieve things all the time. Oftentimes, you find this, that people are famous for their success. They become neurotic, and many times they commit suicide because they can't handle the burden of the success. They get diseased? Yeah. But I'm talking about psychologically, they become out of balance, because one of the feelings that sometimes people have when they become very famous for the success is, I don't deserve this. Which may be true, because the adulation they get from other people may be inordinate. Like big musicians and stuff, they know that, they can't control their senses or anything like that, so all they can do is play the guitar and sing and maybe dance a little bit. But that's not that big a deal. I mean, it's just kind of a natural born talent. For the kind of money and praise that they get, it becomes a crushing kind of experience for them. So devotees don't have to deal with that. They don't take the burden on their head, because they say, when anything good happens, it came because of Krishna's mercy, and any success I have, it wasn't me, it was Krishna. Don't devotees say that all the time? I didn't do anything. And when something bad happens, then, when they don't get the success, then they say, well, actually, that's because I'm not very qualified. I did the best I could, but they don't take it personally. They don't become crushed by it, because they do their duty. Like when Prabhupada was managing the movement, there were all kinds of ups and downs. In Hawaii, the devotees had purchased a house they were using as a temple, and then the person who was temple president got the bright idea of leaving Krishna consciousness, selling the house and taking all the money. So you can read the letters, and Prabhupada's back and forth trying to figure out what happened, and then that's when he made property trustees. But he said, one of his mantras, Prabhupada used to say, what's done is done, now let's move on. So many times, you'll see that in his letters, what's done is done. He didn't become overly concerned. He did his due diligence to right the problem and try to sort it out, but samak siddha vasiddho chow, whether he bought a big building, by developing a certain area and he had a success, or whether it was he lost a building somewhere, or whatever it was, he took it in stride and wasn't dependent on whether he was successful or not. Was there another one? Oh yes, Ananta.
What's the point, to do this? Because if you're trying to, stay equipoised in happiness and distress, what I'm trying to understand is it basically because these are emotions that are tied to the body, the material body, and that's why taking this, making this practice a priority, is that why it's important? Because people have emotions, so it's hard not to be happy if you're successful, or to become distraught if you fail and stuff. So, is it because we're within this body and these emotions are attached to the body, we have to try to develop the mindset but spiritual mindset, and that's what the whole idea is. Do you understand the question?
I understood the question and your answer to your own question. And the answer is yes, because we are naturally, it's natural when born into the material world to identify with the body and mind. And someone asked the question, are you satisfied? This is Narada asking Vyasadeva, the 5th chapter. Now this has too much gain, you can turn it down just a tad. He said, are you satisfied identifying with the body and mind as the self? He had just written the Vedas, and he asked him that question. That's pretty good. And then he said, whatever you desire to describe, which is separate in vision from the Lord, simply acts with different names, forms, and result to agitate the mind like a boat on water is agitated by the wind. A boat on water which has no resting place is agitated by the wind. And yes, the goal of yoga is to calm the mind and be able to fix one's determination, Stita Dir Muni Uchite, to become a Stita Dir Muni. Means the mind and senses are fixed. Could you find me that verse, please? Stita Dir Muni. Huh? No, that's before. That's 2 or 3 verses before Stita Dir Muni Uchite. Dukeshvanu Vignamanaha, Sukeshu Vigataspriha, Vitaraga Baya Kroda, Stita Dir Muni Uchite. Let's look at that really quick, because this verse tells what the result of these kinds of practices are. So that'll be 256? 50 what? 256. Thank you. Okay, so Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. We're going on Google? Oh. There it is. Dukeshvanu Vignamanaha. Keep going down. Translation, please. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. And here's the purport. The word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a muni differs from other munis, he cannot be called a muni in the strict sense of the term. Na savrashir yasya matam nabinnam, Mahabharat. But a Stita Dir Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary muni. The Stita Dir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He is called Prashanta Nishesha Mano Ratantara, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. There's a clue in that, the onslaughts. Look up onslaught. Doesn't sound good, does it? I mean, any kind of onslaught, I don't think it's favorable when there's an onslaught. And generally, when one is attached to the outcome, this onslaught continues. Onslaught of the material miseries. Yes. Who's got it? Go ahead.
Onslaught means a fierce or destructive attack, or a
fierce or destructive attack,
or a large quantity of people or things that is difficult to cope with.
Yeah, it's difficult to cope with.
Its origin is in early 17th century from Middle Dutch. Aanslag, which means blow.
A blow.
And the change in the ending was due to association with slot, which means slaughter.
Slaughter. It doesn't sound good. So the point is, we're facing the onslaught of material desires and the dualities of the material world. And from such a situation, one can't fix one's mind on Krishna. So the practices that we're hearing about, Krishna speaking about, and he mentions them over and over again, are ways in which to become evenly situated in mind so that one can think of Krishna. So I'll just continue and finish the purport. And that is, and he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active, and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. So this gives some indication about the goal of these practices as you're inquiring, is to become steadily situated. This is vitally important, as Krishna points out in the 8th chapter of the Gita. He says, this is a precarious situation you're in. And when he says, yang vapi smaran bhavam tajayante kalevaram tam evaita konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. There's a consequence to the state of your mind, especially when you leave the body. Because according to what you've cultivated and the state that you've developed, when you leave this gross physical body, that's going to determine where you go in your next life. Now, some people are unaware of that. Just as much as there are people, they don't believe in preparing themselves for the latter part of their life. You know, that's why there are parents there that say, you know, you have to get an education or take care of yourself in a certain way. If you don't do those types of things, then generally you won't have many opportunities. And those who don't cultivate their minds properly become more and more restricted by material nature, or flung to places that are not so desirable. So the yogi becomes self-determining in fixing his or her mind on the ultimate goal of life, so he's not at the whims or being forced by material nature to go here and there. So that's a problem. But it's not that devotees don't experience happiness or sadness. As we'll note, Yudhishthira, after the Kurukshetra battle, was disconsolate because of all the death and dying. And so there's a way in which the devotee may be affected by the ways of the movements of the material world, but such a devotee knows how to process it properly. And Krishna helped Yudhishthira at that point and took him to Bhishma. Of course, it was part of the desire of the Lord just so that Bhishma could be glorified and speak to Yudhishthira at the end. But the fact is that Yudhishthira was upset. And when he went to Bhishma Dev, Bhishma explained to him many of the same principles that Krishna is talking about here, about the ways of time. The eternal time is moving through everyone's life. And you have to see it as the hand of the destiny as the Lord speaking to us. You were going to make another comment.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, good.
So it's something it's just with practice, spiritual practice, it just eventually, it's a gradual thing. It's become steady and,
Yeah.
satisfied with good and bad, right? It's not like it's going to happen overnight. You have to practice.
You do have to practice. And you'll find when you're in adverse situations, then you practice in adversity, and then you'll see that you can develop strength. That's one of the reasons I mention, and oftentimes, and I wrote in my book about how going out on book distribution exposes you to all kinds of situations that you normally might not be in. You put yourself in harm's way sometimes, or sometimes there's situations where you have to deal with difficult people or situations, and you have to learn how to tolerate certain things in order to do your service. Everybody does. In order to cook in the kitchen, you have to go in even when it's hot. It's not the place you want to be when it's really hot, but you tolerate and you do your duty. And when you do that, Krishna says, Mamcha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitai tan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. You're steady. You're not being pushed around by the whims of your mind. So he said, if you continue practicing devotional service, even amidst the various changes in the material world, then you'll rise above the three modes of material nature. And that's the purpose of the human form of life, is to achieve that transcendental position. And so yogis have to learn that process of tolerating siddhau and asiddhau, whether it's a perfect situation or a very imperfect situation. Samak, you may remain the same. Just like if you work in a bank, money comes in and goes out, but you don't care because it's not your money. Because your job is to handle it. Your job is to take the money in. Somebody gives you $100, you put all 100 in the till. You don't put 99 in. And when they ask for money, someone comes in and says, give me $1 million, you're not morose because you're like, I just lost $1 million. Because it's not your money. So this is called sanity, because that's actually the situation. In our own lives, there's a way that devotees, they don't remain attached. The other night we did a fundraiser in New York, and people were handing us, money, but we didn't get attached to it. Even this guy came up and he had envelopes and he had our names. Radhanath was sitting there, and he had one for him, one for me, one for Kanamakanana Swami. Ostensibly he was saying, no, this one's for you. I looked at Radhanath Maharaj and he just he put it in the thing. Because he wasn't attached to it. He just, he didn't hesitate for a second. He was like, and I've seen him do that before. He collected all kind of dakshina and you just handed it over, and you go, that's a lot. He goes, it's Krishna's. So the devotees are not encumbered by attachments in the material world, because they see that everything belongs to Krishna, and they're a bank teller. They're just handling the money and doing their duty in that way. Otherwise, Krishna says you become entangled, and then you get the reaction. So this is one of the sciences that Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. If you're attached to it, then you have to suffer the reaction. You may enjoy it, but then later on you have to suffer the reaction from that. Therefore he says, Brahmanyada karmani sangam tyakva karotiya. It said sangam tyakva, you give up the association with these things, thinking that they're yours. And therefore he says, then you don't become besmirched by the sinful reaction. I think we looked that up before, besmirched. Yes, Prabhu. You look satisfied, Ananta, so we'll move on to the next one. You look samak, siddhava siddhaucha, equal in happiness and distress.
First of all, I will express my gratitude for taking time for us to enlighten us after your travels. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
My request is, if you can correct me or explain a little bit more of being steady in this situation, particularly where people get satisfied with less endeavor in case of success, or do not try to improve their self, be it, doing some service, or students, if they say that, I have less marks, I'm steady, doesn't matter, I don't want to make more endeavor. So how do we, take steadiness in that scenario where, somebody
Well,
says,
the case of devotional service, The devotees, like we have a motto here at ISV, always better service, right? And the devotee's always thinking about how to improve service, how to refine it, because it's for Krishna's pleasure. When it comes to our material duty, there is some sense that one shouldn't over-endeavor. However, if the case is that in order to devotees, one of the qualities of devotees is daksha, which means expert. So a devotee is expert in the spiritual realm and also in the material realm. And however, there is a slight differentiation, because when it comes to personal maintenance or maintaining the family and so forth, fifth canto, please. Fifth canto, 5th chapter, 3rd verse, please. Is 5th chapter the Rishabhadev? 553. Eva Mayishe Krita Sauridata. 555? 551 is what I want? No. I don't want Nayam Deho Bhajam Nirilo, okay? I don't want Parabhavas Tavara Bodhajato either. If you give me the book, I'll find it. It's right in the neighborhood. This verse explains the Kapiladev here, Rishabhadev obviously, is explaining the mood of a householder. And he says, 553, Yeva Mahishe Krita Sauridharta Janeshu Deham Bharavartikeshu Griheshu Jaya Majarati Matsu Napriti Yukta Yavad Artashaloke. Those who are interested in reviving Krishna consciousness and increasing their love of Godhead do not like to do anything that is not related to Krishna. They're not interested in mingling with people who are, that's a good word, don't mingle with people who are busy maintaining their bodies, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. They're not attached to their homes, although they may be householders, nor are they attached to wives, children, friends, or wealth. At the same time, they're not indifferent to the execution of their duties. Such people are interested in collecting only enough money to keep the body and soul together. So this is the balance. In material duties, one keeps enough money to keep the body and soul together. And there is a way in which to become, and I keep using this term, overheated when it comes to material maintenance, because there's a certain balance there, and you can get into it too much and get distracted from your spiritual practice. And therefore, this standard is, does it keep my body and soul together? You have a right to keep, as a householder, enough to live at a healthy standard of life. And you also have a right to put some aside in case of emergencies. And however, if you get into the mentality that a lot of people are in, I'm not happy, I only have $10 million. My neighbor has 20. And this is something that Devamrita Swami did a lot of research on when he was writing his book. There is actually a phenomenon that is universal. See, numbers keep going upwards to infinity. So there's never a point at which you're going to get enough money and you're going to say, unless you're a devotee, and you say, that's enough. It doesn't work like that. If you get $10, then you think, like, why not 100? If you get 100, why not 1,000? 1,000, why not 10,000? 10,000, a million, a billion. And it doesn't matter. Billionaires, they're not satisfied either, because you can still be thinking upwards and upwards and upwards. So that agitates the mind, and it keeps, I was with the devotee when he left his body recently. Actually, not for the actual final change, but right before he was. And he told me, my whole life, he made a valiant effort near the end of his life to try to come to full Krishna consciousness. So don't try this. Don't wait till the end and say, I'll just say Hare Krishna. It's really doesn't work like that at all. And he explained that to me, very sincerely. It was a very heartfelt moment with him, when he told me, he said, I've been hanging on to money my whole life. He said, giving up right now, it's really hard. You actually have to practice getting ready for your next life. That's what actually, human life is for. It's a transition. And it's for getting yourself ready to transition into a spiritual body. And if you get too much into the material side, if you get caught in it and obsessing over trying to get too many material facilities, then you get attached to it. And on a subtle level, it's very difficult to give up. You can't just do it all at once. So it's important to practice Krishna consciousness throughout a lifetime and cultivate this feeling of service, using your money and whatever other facilities you have. Of course, your question was about, perfecting your material duties and so forth. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur as an example. He was extremely expert at his work. One of the reasons he was so efficient was because he was on a mission to go home and write books. and he wanted to finish it up. So there is a way in which if you're inefficient, you waste more time in your material duty. Better to do it right so you have more time later on. Otherwise, if you procrastinate in your material work and people are always on your case and you end up losing your job or whatever it is, then you may waste more time. So a devotee is expert as a service for Krishna so that he or she can save time to do more spiritual work.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, this verse is pretty good, though, right? Yes. It really kind of, it's amazing that Rishabhadev is so articulate on this matter, but obviously it's a universal concern. How do we live in this world at the same time cultivate spiritual life? And it's kind of commonsensical. And there's a lot of concession there because, as Prabhupada writes in the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam, you have to be reasonable. If you don't have enough sense gratifications, if you're going out of your mind because you don't have enough sense gratification, you're not balanced, you don't have sensual strength and a modicum of, feeling like okay in life, then it's hard for you to practice devotional service. You have to, and everybody's needs are different. Even sannyasis points out in the Bhagavatam, they have a begging bowl and a little staff, and they can become just as attached to those things as a householder does to a house. But then it goes on to say, but of course, usually it doesn't happen as much. But that's a concern that we should be careful about. And now we'll finish the verse, the Bhagavad Gita verse, because I don't think we got to the end, did we? Yadrishalabhasantushto dvanvatita vimatsara samak siddhava siddhaucha. Last line, kritvapina nibhadyate. So let's look at it. Kritva, please. Doing. Api. Although. Na. Never. Nibhadyate. Becomes affected. So this is the consequence of a person who practices these directions that Krishna gives here, these disciplines, is that although working, he's not affected by it. Translation is, he who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A Krishna-conscious person does not make much endeavor even to maintain his body. He is satisfied with gains which are obtained of their own accord. He neither begs nor borrows, but he labors honestly as far as is in his power, and is satisfied with whatever is obtained by his own honest labor. He is therefore independent in his livelihood. He does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Krishna consciousness. However, for the service of the Lord, he can participate in any kind of action without being disturbed by the duality of the material world. The duality of the material world is felt in terms of heat and cold, or misery and happiness. A Krishna-conscious person is above duality because he does not hesitate to act in any way for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, he is steady, both in success and in failure. These signs are visible when one is fully in transcendental knowledge. So the elements in this verse are important to carry around and apply practically in one's life. And just like with any other discipline, if you practice it, then you'll get better at it. Okay? So now let's bring Satyadev Prabhu up here and we'll have some interviews. Bring him a chair. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is. Here's Satyadev Prabhu. Now, you have to give him a microphone. Get him a mic stand and a microphone. It's like a talk show.
Mic stands.
So Satyadev Prabhu, how have you been lately?
Well, as my mother would say, peachy keen. I've been feeling very happy. And I'm glad to be back from my travels and back to sunny California.
What are they thinking over there in China anyway? Is it okay to talk about China since we're on the air?
As long as you're not in China. Well, it's amazing. Krishna consciousness, the practice of Krishna consciousness is transcendental to the material world. So Krishna consciousness is going on well there in spite of the onslaughts from the government.
Here, you could put that in there. When you go to China and you have to play this cat and mouse game, so you don't get incarcerated, does it make you more grateful for the freedoms that we have in America? And are there times when you've thought, well, we take for granted the kind of freedoms that we have here in order to teach Krishna consciousness?
Well, especially when I'm here in the West or before I go, I'm appreciating the freedoms we have here to practice religion, the freedom of choosing to worship God or not worship God. But in China, there's definitely a move by the government to suppress any kind of belief in God or religious practice, or just to control the individual population. So, but once I'm there, I forget about that because I'm with devotees and everyone's chanting Hare Krishna. But when they have to congregate in small numbers, can't congregate more than 30 or 40, 50 people. You can't have a temple, and it's always in someone's apartment, and have to be very careful about not disturbing the neighbors. So it's very important right now that the devotees just sort of blend in. So there's advantages and disadvantages to that. From here, from our perspective, we might see it as a disadvantage, but it turns out to be an advantage for spreading Krishna consciousness in China, because when a new person comes, they fit right in. Everyone looks the same, talks the same, and people. It's easy for a new person to come into a devotee gathering and not feel like they're different or strange. So it appears to be a disadvantage from our perspective, but from the Chinese perspective, it's been an advantage on that level.
I was also thinking about how in Vrindavan, when Krishna is appearing in the world, there's a lot of restrictions also, because at that time Kamsa's main focus is trying to kill Krishna, and he's already incarcerated Vasudeva and Devaki, and there's a commentary there Prabhupada gives where he says that there's an atmosphere of fear in Vrindavan at that time because of the persecutions of Kamsa. And he said that fear factor is purifying. It's purifying, like Devaki is always afraid that her child's going to be harmed. And I wonder if you feel any of that when you're there, how that, helps to augment the experience of Krishna consciousness, because it's a more rarefied atmosphere and there's some fear of the government and so forth.
Yeah, I think when you have like the most valuable thing, Krishna consciousness, and whatever you have that you feel is valuable, if someone's trying to take it away, then it makes you more appreciative of what you have, and I think that's definitely there amongst the devotees, because until a couple of years ago, it appeared that the Chinese government was becoming more accepting of Krishna consciousness, and not that they're just focused, on suppressing devotees. They're suppressed on. They're focused on. The government wants to be atheistic, and they want the population to be atheistic. So it's not like they're just going around looking for devotees or small time compared to other religious groups.
I just think it's important to remember what kind of freedoms we have and take advantage of it while we can. Because even other countries, I notice, for instance, even in Japan, which is pretty free when it comes to religious speech and so forth, right?
Right.
But if you go out on Harinam, they always move you along. Sooner or later, the police come and go, get out of here. It's really a kind of an amazing thing. We live in a place where we can congregate and chant and so forth. Prabhupada really appreciated America for that he said several times that they never tried to hinder me. He was able to get a foothold here in America because of the values of the American system, which was freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Everyone gets an opportunity to pursue their own potential here. And that made it especially helpful for him to be able to expand the movement. Why are you smiling?
Because the dollar says, "In God we trust."
Yeah.
And the principle of allowing religious freedom and free speech, those are such important rights that we have to fight to keep, really. The nature of the material world and the nature of governments to control. I think it was Marx said that if you want to control the population, there's two things you have to take away from them. One is personal ownership of property and religion. Free thought, free thinking. And I always appreciated Prabhupada's comment when he was asked how he wanted his devotees to be. He said, I want my disciples to be independently thoughtful. as a group, but also as individuals, I think it's something we have to strive for on a very personal level to always be very conscientious of why we're doing what we're doing and not just mechanically, blindly following things.
And now, you'll ask some questions to Satyadeva and myself. Go ahead. Srivas Pandit Prabhu. No. Give him a mic.
So, Satyadeva Prabhu and Vaisheshika Prabhu, if you could give a little bit of history, how it started in China and how big is the movement in China?
Well, the first person who went to Hong Kong was Borijan Prabhu, who was, he went there in 1970. And just like Vaisheshika Prabhu was mentioning about so many devotees, when they went out to spread Krishna consciousness, they went to those countries just like Srila Prabhupada did, with nothing, without knowing anyone. And Borijan Prabhu, he pushed down in Hong Kong for many years. And then in the early 90s, I think maybe 91, Srila Prabhupada sent Tamal Krishna Maharaj to mainland China. And, That's, yeah.
Yes, like
91.
70s.
Yeah, so Borijan went to Hong Kong in 70, but no one had gone to mainland China. So I think Tamal Krishna Maharaj was the first one to go to mainland China. Of course, he was sent there by Srila Prabhupada in around 86.
No, 76.
No, 76. 1976, but I don't know if he actually went there then.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he started, he and Drishtadumna Maharaj at the time was getting ready to go in there, and they were tooling up for that.
Anyway, I think that the main way they began to spread Krishna consciousness there was through becoming yoga teachers. So some of Tamal Krishna Maharaj's godbrothers, the pioneers there like Nrsimha Maharaj and Giridhari Swami and a few others, Krishna Baladev, they became yoga teachers. And they were teaching Krishna consciousness at yoga centers. And that's still the main way the movement is spreading there, because it's authorized by the government. They accept the physical practice of yoga. And it's very easy in many ways to connect the Indian culture to the Chinese culture traditionally. In fact, when I was in, I can't pronounce the name of the city very well, it's sounds like chanting, Chenzhou. And it's kind of in between Hong Kong and Shanghai. It's near the coast, but it was traditionally it was a port city that was traditionally open to other. It's called it's actually called the Seaport Silk Road. So many foreigners came and went, and actually many Indians set up, import-export businesses there in ancient China. And I recently saw an ancient deity of Vishnu. There's been a Hindu temple there for like 500 years. And the deity is there, still worshipped by the local people, of Vishnu. It's an old stone deity, 4 arms. And so there's remnants, actually, of Indian culture there. And so in that city, even to this day, the government is much more, the local government is very much accepting of devotees and different religions and and just the idea of foreigners being there, where you can go to other parts of China and you'll never see a foreigner there, and it's very kind of restrictive. So it's not all the same. It's kind of like America, the difference between the coastal cities and the heartland, right? So anyway, Krishna consciousness was beginning to spread by yoga centers, and like I was saying, up until 2 years ago, the government had actually authorized the printing and selling of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, but now they've gone back and they've stopped that. But it was sort of opening up in that way, and devotees were selling lots of books online. The main preaching in China is through the internet. And actually, it's also the main way devotees associate with each other. They have japa circles, and they have Bhagavad Gita readings every morning, and they inform each other what's going on all through WeChat, which is kind of like WhatsApp, and they sell a lot of books to non-devotees online, and even though it's so-called illegal now, that's the main way how the outreach is going on there. And so they're not really allowed to have temples and deity worship and these things. So the main focus is on Harinam, or chanting in small groups, not outside so much, but through the internet, getting people to come, having kirtans at yoga centers, and selling Bhagavad Gitas at the kirtan programs. And then people, they have this their own initiative. If they want to have association, they have to make it. And it's no big deal. You just meet in someone's apartment. You don't have to buy land or have a temple or anything. You just get together and hear and chant, and just organically it spreads like that.
Here in the United States, we definitely have that streak of stick it to the man. Can you use that in China to get people more interested in books on spirituality?
Not in China. See, actually, the Chinese people, in one way, they appreciate the government, and compared to America, from their point of view, it's a very safe place to live. There's not a lot of crime. Because the government, like Krishna says, the way to control lawlessness is by punishment. And so when you have a strict government, the crime factor is suppressed. And there's a certain, and if people's basic needs are being met, and then there's a certain level of peacefulness, which is actually conducive to spiritual practice. And so the focus, the focus amongst the preachers in China is to respect the laws, respect the government, and become good, responsible citizens. Don't appear like you're a fanatical cult person. Maintain your individual thought, and at the same time, practice Krishna consciousness. Take the essence of Krishna consciousness, the practices and the teachings, and become happy.
Dainiti Prabhu is way in the back.
Do you know what changed? Well, I got 3 questions. Do you know what changed 2 years ago? Did the government change? And are there devotees in jail there? And would they jail you if they saw you chanting Hare Krishna on the street, kirtan?
3 questions. Well, what happened 2 years ago was the president of China, who was previously elected every, I think, 6 years by the Communist Party, manipulated the government in such a way as to become elected for life. And from that point on, he started instituting his personal vision of how he thought China should go back to being a purely atheistic country, and also to control, especially using facial recognition and these other kinds of technologies to control the masses of people, any kind of group, not only a religious group. Even if you're in a tennis club, you have to get permission to meet if you have more than 50 members, or even if they have the internet police now, and these kind of things. And as far as chanting going out on Harinam in a park, actually it's quite acceptable because everyone's out in the park dancing, listening to music. I mean, if you go down to Chinatown, right, or you go into Golden Gate Park, you'll see Chinese people out there dancing, doing Tai Chi. Listen, it's part of their culture. So that doesn't really stick out. But if you wear strange clothes and you're gathering in someone's apartment and a neighbor calls the police, then you can get into trouble. And this recently happened to a devotee. And he was dragged in, and they took his cell phone, and they got all the information off his cell phone practically about our whole movement. They started tracking that down. But fortunately, that's been local, to that one particular area. Somehow they're not communicating with each other. So the devotees, they can actually practice Krishna consciousness, but they have to do it intelligently and carefully. And I see it in some ways as an advantage to the spreading of Krishna consciousness. From our point of view, it seems like a disadvantage, but because they appreciate what they have more and they're more careful, it's actually more attractive to the common or even higher classes of people. So it can't be stopped, actually.
So are there many devotees in jail, though, from the past, or?
I don't think so. There are a few here and there. But like I said, the Krishna consciousness movement, compared to other groups, is, still pretty small time. And up until, 2 years ago, and still, the leaders of the Chinese leaders there had good connections with the government, and were talking. That's how they were able to get the Bhagavad Gita printed and published in China, because of good relationships they had worked hard to establish. And those relationships are still there, and the conversations are still going on. But at the same time, pressures come down from above, not way above, but from the higher ups that have made it difficult. But I think it can be turned around as long as the devotees remain responsible members of society and keep good relationships with the common people around them and with the governmental leaders.
Thank you.
Just a few minutes left.
Krishna, in Bay Area we see a lot of Chinese around the area, and especially the younger crowd who come from China for studying. So are there any suggestions of preaching here, or how can we even just start a conversation with them?
Well, most of the Chinese that are living here probably speak English, so I don't think language is such a barrier. But it's good to have, books in Chinese. And some of the translations are pretty good, compared to the Japanese translations. And I think it's just like any anytime you're, trying to give Krishna consciousness to others, it's just as important to cultivate this, to cultivate the soils that is to plant the seed, as it is to water the seed, as it is each part of the process is important. So you would have to go into the Chinese community and connect with them Krishna consciousness according to their interests. And
we just have a few minutes left, so I wanted to appreciate all the hard work that you're all doing here, going through the marathon and keeping all the programs going in really highly energetic ways. Coming up this Saturday, there's a really big opportunity in San Francisco to distribute several thousand books all at once. Considering the fact that you can't do it in China, and San Francisco is as liberal a city as you're going to find, maybe Berkeley, but I mean that almost goes too far. But San Francisco is as liberal a place as you're ever going to find for distributing Krishna consciousness, considering it's one planet and it all belongs to Krishna. Wherever we can get the opportunity to distribute transcendental knowledge. Prabhupada left one Bhagavad Gita in Russia when he went there, and it had repercussions, transcendental repercussions, still is having transcendental repercussions. And the kind of stronghold that some of these leaders have in the world is artificial, it can't last. The effect of popularizing transcendental literature, of transcendental culture, giving association, is indelible. So consider that. You've been given this field to preach in Silicon Valley, which is wide open, and it's like a free space where you can pour in as much nectar as possible. So try to give as many transcendental literatures as possible. Of course, not just this Saturday, but this Saturday is a big opportunity. It's a point in time when we can really go for it. I, on the other hand, am not so fortunate to come with you this weekend because of so many other obligations. I have to leave early tomorrow morning for my last trip of this year to Toronto, which is one of the very important centers in North America. I've been going there for 10 years, and they have a really well-organized team there for making devotees and distributing books. And just after that, I'm going to stop in here, and then I'm going on that annual break that we take every year, Nirakula and me, to take a few days before the new year. So I may see you right after we get back from Toronto. I think that might be Christmas Day or something like that. I think you have the day off that day. We're flying out of Toronto early in the morning on Christmas Day. And then after that, we're in town at the beginning of the year. Please forgive me for being away so much. And my heart's really here, and I'm really touched by the way that you're pushing on. So please give it one last push. Win one for the Gipper. You have to go back in history to know that one. It's Ronald Reagan. And please accept my humble obeisances. Vancha kalpatarvishcha kripasindhabevacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. And let's give a special thanks to Satyadev Prabhu for making...
thank you, Ron.
Gaur Premanande Haribo. Please don't mind, I have an early flight tomorrow, so I'm going to sneak out, like sometimes I do on Wednesday nights. And I'll see you back here on Christmas Day, I hope. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
की बजाय जय गोर चांदेर आरती को शोभा जानावी टाटावाने जगमनलोबा जानावी टाटावाने जगत मनलोबा Taichan Bame Gadadara Kibadaki Neni Taichan Bame Gadadara Ningkate Advaita Shrini Vasachatadara O Ningkate Advaita Shrini Vasachatadara Bosi ache gorachan Ratna Singachane Kiba bosi ache gorachan Ratna Singashane. Arati kore na Brahma Adideva gane. Arati kore na Brahma Adideva gane. Adi kori chamara dulaya. Ki banara hari adi kori chamara dulaya. Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Goshadigaya. Oh Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Goshadigaya. Shankar baje ganta baje baje karatala. Shankar baje ganta baje baje karatala. Madhura mridanga baje paramarasala. Madhura mridanga baje paramarasala. Bahu koti Chandra jini vadana ujala. Bahu koti Chandra jini vadana ujala. Gala deshe vanamala kor jalamala. Gala deshe vanamala kor jalamala. Shiva Shukana Radha gada. Kiba Shiva Shukanarada Reme Gada Gada Reme Gada Gada Bhakati Vi Noda Deke Varara Sampada O Bhakati Vinoda Deke Varara Sampada Thakur Bhakati Vinoda Deke Varara Sampada Kiba Jaya Jaya Gora Chandin Harati Koshoba Kiba Jaya Jaya Gora Chandin Harati Koshoba Pujana Vida Javane Jagamana Loba Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Hare. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtottara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtottara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री वृंदावन धाम की श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की भक्ति देवी की तुलसी देवी की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की Transcendental Book Distribution की Samaveda Gaur Bhaktavinda की. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Namaste Narashinghaya. Namaste Narashinghaya. Praladadayine पूर्वाक्षः हिरण्यकाशिपूर्वाक्षः शिलाटङ्कनकालये शीलाटङ्कनकालये इतो नृसिंह परतो नृसिंह इतो नृसिंह परतो नृसिंह यातो यातो यामितातो नृसिंह यातो यातो यामितातो नृसिंह बाह्ये नृसिंह हृदये नृसिंह बाह्ये नृसिंह हृदये नृसिंह बाह्ये नृसिंह हृदये नृसिंह नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलवरे नका अद्भुतशृङ्गारं दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तानुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तानुभृङ्गा तव करकमलवरे नका अद्भुतशृङ्गार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तानुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे 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 जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय नरहरि जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय नरहरि जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 श्रील प्रभुपाद नीताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नरसिंहदेव भगवान की भक्तराज प्रहलाद महाराज की श्रील प्रभुपाद की हिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Welcome to this Wednesday Feast program, and we're very happy to have your presence here at ISV. And today was very special because we had Vaisheshika Prabhu back here at ISV and had his association. And we'd like to thank him for giving tonight's class, and also Satyadev Prabhu for giving tonight's class. And thank you to Avantika for leading the beautiful Gaur Aarti. As the holiday season is approaching, we also have many festivities here at ISV. This weekend, December 21st, we will be having a grand celebration, and we will be distributing at least 2,000 Trimurti sets. And what a Trimurti set is basically a pack of 3 books. And we will be wrapping them very beautifully and going and giving them out to whoever we see, and really putting our hearts into distributing this message and giving this gift of Krishna consciousness to everybody. So this is always, we usually have it only in Thanksgiving, but this year we're getting a second opportunity to go out together in San Francisco and distribute books as a community. So please join us on Market and Powell. For any further information, you can contact Malini Mataji regarding details of transportation and any other information you may need. On Sunday at 1:30 p.m., we will also have a gratitude fair where all the devotees will bring their goods that they've made with so much love to present to you all, which you can take and give a small donation for. And that will be followed by the Sunday feast. Now we'll have the cooks.
Hare Krishna. Today's prashadam was cooked by Rupa Shri Mataji, Ankita Mataji, Hitesh Prabhu, Krupali Mataji, and Alex Prabhu. Haribol.
We welcome today all the newcomers to ISV. If you have any questions or would like to know more about our programs or connect with any devotees, please feel free to reach out to me or any devotees here, and we would be happy to give you more information about all the other programs and look forward to seeing you back here again. Now, after the prasadam prayers, prasadam will be served in the corridor. Prasadam line will start here where Prabhu is due to the rain, and we can all have prasadam inside. Hare Krishna.
Sharira Vidya Jan Jodnyata Kar Jive Fele Vishaya Sagore Dharmade Jivayati Lobo Moy Sudurmati Take jita kartina samsare Krishna Badadoyamoy Kori Bade Jiva Jai Swaprasadana Dilobai Sayanamrita Pao Radha Krishna Guna Gao Premidako Shri Chaitanya Nitai Premidako Shri Chaitanya Nitai Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmane Vishnave Sopa Punyavatam Rajan Vishwasune Vajayate Prashade Sarva Dukanam Hanidakshyo Vajayate Prashana Chita Suyasu Buddhi Paryavatishate Tvayopa Bhukta Shaganda Vasulankara Charshita Vajishta Bojino Dasas Tavamayam Jayamahi Bhagavad Shima Prasad Ki Nitai Gaura Haribol 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Please come take prasadam.
Acting.